Hey everyone, J.R. Pepper here. I'm sure you're thinking, I wonder why I haven't gotten any notifications for that YouTube channel in quite a while. Well, I'm here to answer that question. Life finds a way of making you quite busy when you can't go anywhere. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we all figured out how to watch obscure television shows that we never saw and read books we always promised ourselves we'd read, make lots of banana bread, and do puzzles and watch reality TV shows repeatedly. And we were all very busy trying to busy ourselves. And now that the pandemic has moved into year 2542, now we're all just kind of like, well, whatever, here we are, WandaVision's on, we should watch that. Much better than me watching True Blood for several weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, although the theme song is quite catchy. That having been said, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is J.R. Pepper. I'm an armchair historian, spirit photographer, and professional eccentric. And we're going to read for you some art historical smut. The art historical smut that we're going to examine today is thanks to Peggy Guggenheim herself. Peggy Guggenheim was born in 1898 and died in December of 1979. She was a collector, she was a fancy socialite, and if you've heard the name Guggenheim, well, yes, she is part of that family. You know that museum that you always see that looks like you could skateboard on it and it would look quite fun? Yes, she is of that family. She's the daughter of Benjamin Guggenheim, who went down with the Titanic in 1912, and she basically inherited a ton of cash.
To be rich, shouldn't you feel like a nice entertainment you can pay for gay escapade?
And she used that money to form the Solomon Guggenheim Foundation, as well as collecting art throughout war-torn Europe and America. She had many exhibitions, and she's responsible for bringing many of the artists that escaped from Europe over to the States, most notable being Max Ernst. Unfortunately, Miss Guggenheim is one of the many, many lovers of Max Ernst. I never finished that video, and the reason for that is because iMovie is quite annoying. She had several tiny dogs. That seems to be the thing for socialites, is to have tiny dogs. The book that I'm going to read to you today, or a section I'm going to read to you today, is Confessions of an Art Addict, Peggy Guggenheim, with a foreword by Gore Vidal. If I may. In the autumn of 1949, I made an exhibition of more or less recent sculpture in the garden, and Professor Giuseppe Marchiori, a well-known critic, wrote the introduction to the catalogue. We exhibited an Arp, a Brancusi, a Caldermobile, 3 Giacomettis, a Lipschitz, a Moore, a Pevensey, a David Hare from my collection, and a Mirko, Consagra, Salvatore, and 2 Vianis, which we borrowed from the artists. There was also a Marino Marini, which I bought from him in Milan. I went to borrow one of them for the sculpture show, but ended up buying the only thing available. It was a statue of a horse and rider, the latter with his arms spread way out in ecstasy. And to emphasize this, Marino had added a phallus in full erection. But when he had it cast in bronze for me, he had the phallus made separately so that it could be screwed in and out at leisure. Marino placed the sculpture in my courtyard on the Grand Canal, opposite the Prefettura, and named it Angel of the Citadel. Herbert Reed said that the statue was a challenge to the prefect. The best view of it was to be seen from my sitting room window. Often peeking through it, I watched visitors' reaction to the statue. When the nuns came to be blessed by the patriarch, who on special holy days went by my house in a motorboat. Everything about this is ridiculous. I detached the phallus of the horseman and hid it in a drawer. Now I'm really curious where this drawer was. I also did this on certain days when I had to receive stuffy visitors, and occasionally I forgot, but when confronted with this phallus, found myself in great embarrassment. The only thing to do in such cases was to ignore it. In Venice, legend spread that I had several phalluses of different sizes. like spare parts that I used on different occasions.
How are the dildos? They're fine.
That's what she said. If you have any art historical smut that you would like me to read in one of my many, many voices, please do send an email or send it over to my website, which is www.girlduality.com. And maybe, just maybe, I'll put on pants more often and make an effort to do this once a month, like a real YouTube personality. Until then, darlings, get vaccinated, stay safe, tell each other you love one another as often as possible, and do avoid watching True Blood when you see these gorgeous men and you can't go outside. I'm J.R. Pepper, and that was Art Historical Smut.